Good. Cool. All right. Hello, everyone. Got an exciting night ahead of us today, so we'll do a quick recap of last month, and then we'll get into it. So do a call to order. So Bill Sage, back, present.
Suzanne Dirksen, present.
Rita Russell, present.
Jenny Nolan, present.
Jackie Lowe, present.
Tyson Thornburg, present.
You don't finish up your order yet.
James Horan, present. Peter Echo, Budget Advisory Committee.
All right, and on the phone. Zoom.
Josh Newell, back, present.
John Lewis, City Manager.
All right, thank you all. So last month's meeting minutes from April. Do I have a motion to approve?
I will move to approve the minutes from our April meeting.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. And it looks like Tim Dodd joined as well for
Deputy City Manager Tim Dodd has joined us.
okay. So I think tonight we're going to be going through the budget, the SIP projects, I should say. So Jenny, so you've already started, I was watching you, already got a spreadsheet, or I don't know, is that you, Tyson? I don't know. But already have a spreadsheet going for tonight? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's the spreadsheet I sent to everybody.
Yeah.
So this can be our master one that we work on.
So Stan and I were kind of talking on the side here. I was going through all the document. Thank you for sending that out. I know they kept revising it on you and you had to keep sending it out, so thank you. Is there in the committee recommendation that was there that had city staff in it? They did a prioritization of each fund. Was that associated to, because there's no dollar amount associated to that. So was that they just left that aside and said, hey, here's what we think? Or I'm just wondering, like, because I mean, I like it. It was very easy to read. It was straightforward, and it was interesting to see what city staff, was kind of prioritizing for this membership. But I wasn't sure, like, because last year we spent a lot of time, and I don't remember off the top of my head right now what the amount is. Is it $5? Yeah. And we tried to nail down to that dollar as close as we could get. Is that the same thing that not that we have to take the same approach, but is that the same thing that the committee did?
I'm not sure. Tim is on the line, and he spearheaded that conversation with our internal capital review committee. And maybe Tim, you would mind speaking?
Yeah, I'm happy to explain. Yeah, so when it goes to council in their final packet, we do plan to provide the score sheets that each member of the internal CIP review committee did. But in the interest of time, so we're actually working with a consultant right now. So I think that's something that's important to know to help us kind of, develop or rethink this process for next year. One of the big things that Jackie Lowe and I have been talking to the consultant about is what the timeline will look like. And I think we're all agreed that we'd love to do this over, a 3 or 4 month period as opposed to a 1 month period. So given that we had a short amount of time and we wanted to get something to the boards and commissions from this internal committee, we made the decision to provide a memo that you received, that you mentioned, that really is meant to just kind of be thematic and say, here are the top, here are our top 3, 4, 5 projects in each category based on our reasoning to help inform the boards and commissions. As I mentioned, we did do score sheets for all of them. Those will go to council, but just given the amount of time in the board and commission schedules, it just made more sense to do like a cover memo.
Okay.
So they basically gave their top 3 recommendations for each of the funds.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, that was helpful. It's just
a different, slightly different approach.
Because it seems like a very easy. I don't know if we want to take a similar approach or just kind of go through it like we did last year. And so I thought it'd just be interesting to hear what the thought process was. Otherwise, we just start kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I can share my thought process, which I just briefly shared with you, and I'm open to whatever process you guys have. But I'd even look at the tier 3s. I only focused on tier 1s and tier 2s. And as I listed my priorities, I did note if I was in agreement with the recommendations from the directors, or if it was, if there was any variation there. And then the questions I always ask myself is, does it have a match? Does it generate revenue? Does it secure accessibility? And is it an improvement or is it a repair?
And Suzanne, she was showing me, or she had highlighted which ones had, just for easy viewing for, you know, the
Yeah.
grants, the grant matches.
Yeah, and
Which was a
Colin,
good idea.
G, the project name, I found myself scrolling to the right to see if there was a match or not. So what I did in column G is if there was a match or a grant or supplemental funding, I just turned it green in column G. Yeah, so everything you have filtered with a Y there, Jenny, excuse me, it's green in column G. And that was just my visual tool.
Green here, got it.
Yeah, I started putting an asterisk and then I thought, Excel has a tool for this.
Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me.
So do we want to go through and prioritize first for each? Start talking about it for just for each fund, going through and prioritizing first?
Yeah.
That was my thought, and I'm open to ideas here on the best way, you know, to go about it. I'm not, certainly not.
And the other thing that I did that was different from the director spreadsheet is I just listed 1 through 5. And everything else is just a 6, like greater than 5, or I just left it blank. So if there's 16 line items in a certain fund, I didn't do 1 through 16.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys use a similar approach, or how you'd like to apply that here, but that's what I did.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Are we kind of just talking through any priorities before we actually start talking about the priorities, I should say. All right. We'll start jumping into the Conservation Trust Fund. You know, the interesting, and this carries over to several, to a few of the funds, but, and I think this came up a little bit during the SIP meeting, but I mean, obviously there's several things here from a Park and Rec perspective that if the bond measure moves forward and is ultimately approved, which I know there's a lot to have happen there. You know, I think it was kind of, well, then they'll revisit, you know, where those funds go and how they're used. And even to that extent, some of the matching, like I know there was the Broncos match and stuff like that, some other funds that may come in. But I think I was looking at it as if, well, if that doesn't happen, you know, do I still want the train or, you know, the Pirates Cove maintenance, those types of things, you know? And so that's kind of how I took it, and then, you know, trust that, you know, if that's all approved, then that'll, you know, kind of revisit all of that.
Agreed.
Okay. So I guess I'll start off. I mean, from a priority perspective for the Conservation Trust, the Pirates Cove, the fixtures and the maintenance were a top priority for me because it's revenue generating. So I saw that as, and those were both tier 1s, separate line items, but both tier 1. So I saw those as priorities.
Who's driving the screen? Is that you, Jenny?
Mhm.
How can we communicate to you so you can fill in the blanks?
Yeah,
What's the
that's
easy way?
Well, once we have a consensus on something, if you guys can say, yes, look, we're gonna fund these, or
Okay.
Um,
Well, should we do line item by line item? How can we do this efficiently?
Well, I don't know if this is gonna be popular or not, but I know last year we went through it and it was a little lengthy, so maybe we can shorten that tonight. But I wouldn't be against us spending our own time and coming back with, once we've gone through all of them between now and June 8th.
Yeah.
But I also don't wanna take people's time.
I think I'm in agreement with you. I like the idea of going through line item by line item, but I don't want to discuss it in length.
I agree.
yeah,
I mean, because I think
We
we all
think-
came to a pretty good consensus last year. I guess my only question is, are we only using the prioritization or are we actually gonna allocate amounts?
I think that would be step 2.
Okay.
that was my thought. That was my
Like,
thought too.
we agree that a thing is a priority. Are we in agreement as to,
And then we each go back and decide what kind of allocation we want to put.
Yep.
And then come to consensus.
okay,
And I was thinking if we're pretty well aligned on the priority, then, if we have $7 million or whatever that number is based on priorities, just based on a prioritization, we can start, chopping off, the lower, the 5s or the 6s or, I guess that was my initial thought. And I know it won't go that smoothly. I'm sure there'll be, some discussion points and such, but,
and the
so,
only two funds that we have, a dollar amount threshold is gonna be for the public improvement fund and the capital projects fund.
Yeah.
The other funds that the departments have identified, they have funding, and these are the projects that they would like to fund. And if you're in agreement with those, then we can easily just say, okay, we're gonna fund like all the CTF projects that are listed here, as listed. Where the benefit is from your discussion is gonna help us in prioritizing the PIF and the capital projects fund, because that's where we have $9 million worth of tier 1 project costs, but only $5 million worth of funding available currently, so.
so maybe start with the public improvement fund then?
I would
That's a
say
good
those two, unless you guys, if there's anything on the other funds that that no, you don't want to fund, or you want to communicate to city
Yeah.
council,
That makes sense.
that would be another way of
Yeah.
looking at it.
No, that makes sense to me, is to start there. And I think from, a lot of those are probably where we had our most discussion points last year as well.
yeah,
When we got into sidewalks and, bridges and stuff like that, it seemed like that was kind of the focus of our conversations on last time. So thank you, Jenny. That's a good idea.
You're welcome.
so one more idea to make this efficient and also allow us to do some homework, I guess, between now and June 8th. Would it make sense to have, bear with me, a column for each of us? And so when we go through each row, James is like, I give that a 1, Peter's like a 2. Bill's like, yep, it's a 1, and we just go through it, and then that's our working document that we leave with? Or are we gonna try to come into an agreement, which Jenny's gonna populate into column M?
I think it's a good idea, but I think we need to stay moving.
Huh?
I think it's a good idea. We just need to stay moving, and if Jenny is willing to do that.
I am.
Okay.
You'll just have to speak up.
I'm just thinking, I'm thinking about how I like to use Excel, and I'm also thinking about the level of discussion we might have.
Yeah, didn't last year we all provided our final input and then we sort of, we discussed through our final decisions, but I think we sort of condensed
Yeah,
the outcome of what the committee arrived at agreeing on.
okay. Yeah, and I'm happy to do some Excel work after this meeting.
Same here.
Okay,
Okay. I'm ready.
All right.
All right.
So we're not looking at funding at the moment, so I'm going to just hide these columns. I'm going to take it tier two-prong approach.
And I start, which one are we doing first? Public Improvement Fund?
Yeah.
Oh,
So to me, the most, the first thing that I said, which is what Suzanne had mentioned, was looking at the ones, or I guess I was looking at it, was the outside funding. Not that necessarily we can do all of them, but certainly that plays a factor into if we're going to get into funding. Or we're going to look at recommending funding.
So should we start with, are we gonna go down the list or are we gonna list our priorities?
You might just want to go through each one and list it.
Yeah.
through-
Yeah,
went through.
I wanna make it easy for Jenny and I
Yeah,
can't help but
okay.
wonder if she's just typing numbers and hitting that enter key and.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so first one, Union Avenue Bridge Rehab.
First one is wayfinding and placemaking.
Where am I?
Row 47,
I was playing with
or
it the other
line number 32, row 47.
the other night.
One. Sort by column E. She's got a little filter there. Okay.
I don't know, I guess I'll just go off of this because I don't know what I
You
did.
guys- you guys are gonna tell me
It's not
whether-
gonna help my notes, but that's okay.
Are you gonna say it's a tier 1, tier 2?
Yeah,
Okay.
so James is up.
So I just want to make sure that I'm reading this correctly. So excuse me, in column L, there's an ending balance for available budget. And
Yes.
then the request is over in column Q. So on this particular request, the variance is only 18,000 and change between,
No, just opposite.
They basically have 181,000 as of March to spend, and they're requesting an additional 200,000.
an additional 200,000.
Additional 200,000,
Oh.
yeah.
Got it.
So you can see 2022 actual, how much have been spent on that particular project and carry forward addition based on 2023 budget, what they have been spent at the end of March, ending balance as of March, and this additional request and the total.
And if I recall the presentations correctly, this is a lot of like the neighborhood signage and things. It's a follow-up to the neighborhood historical commission's naming exercise that happened.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
part
I
of
think
it.
that's a pretty good summary.
I think there's kind of more.
And I can answer questions about that as needed.
Okay, James, are you going first?
I can. This feels different than last year. I felt like we had a lot of consensus and we're just flying through this. I mean, I guess it's been identified as a tier 1. And I think, Suzanne, to your point, this has the accessibility aspect to it. So I'll be in agreement with making it a priority 1.
I'm at 3.
Yeah, I'm at 2.
So I did ranks 1 through 5, but I can condense that to 1 through 3 to be alignment with you guys. So how are you going at this? Like 1, 2, 3?
Well,
I
I was
from
thinking
a
on
year
a point of 6, but,
I know, because that's what I have.
but, well,
Okay.
that's fine. Then I'll make mine at 2, if that's the case.
So we're gonna say, I guess we should have set that boundary for. There's 1 through 6, is that what we're?
Well, so I did like first priority, second priority, third priority in each of the categories, all the way down to 5th priority, and then everything else is just a.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because for me, this was not one of my first priorities. I gave it you know, a 5+. It's in the,
It's on the list.
Well, I mean, we could do 1 through 3 since we're gonna reconcile our decisions at the end,
okay,
right? So if you
Okay.
want.
So for what it's worth, the director recommendations actually ranked it, it looks like 1 through 27. So they looked at every single one and ranked it in choice order. Um,
Okay.
and that's
I
why
don't know.
I didn't bother going beyond 5. So I did my top 5 and then everything else is just lumped together because I'm not gonna choose between 2 $30,000 projects.
Yeah, I don't think that's probably the best use of our time. I agree. At least at this point.
So I mean, I can't
So-
even give it no score because it's not in my top 5.
Yeah, this is a low priority for me. So if we're just ranking 1 through 5 on priority ranking, because I don't think every category has 5 things. So are we gonna have multiple 5s, multiple 3s? What's the confines of what it's like 5, we don't care if you get to it sometime in the future, great. 1, get to it, make sure it happens this year. 2, if you have like, especially in the public improvement funds, we're asked to both if there's less than 5 million and more than 5 million. So 1 is all the time, 2 is partial fund under 5 million, add funds over 5 million, 3 is over 5 million, 4 is if something happens to be able to add in, 5 is we never care about it, it's lowest priority. Like, is that how we want to establish this number system, or what's the continuity between how we're numbering?
I didn't think about qualifying my numbering system like that. It really was just a matter of priority and
I guess the other idea too, to make this conversation quicker, maybe to just do the high dollar amounts per fund first.
But do we,
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the most important, I
Yeah.
suppose.
I mean, maybe to where Josh was going, I mean, do we look at it at the director prioritization and say, what don't we agree with? Not that we're trying to align with them necessarily, you know, or nor do, not that we have to, but, you know, are there things out of things that don't make sense from that 1 through 23 in there? And then, or 27, yeah, 23 looks like, you know, is there something there that we don't agree with?
I think
And then have the conversation on where that goes.
I'm initially reluctant to just favor the high dollar items first because I think we can get a lot of return on investment with some of the smaller cost items. I don't know.
So for simplicity purposes, because the level of details the directors went into, I don't think we have time capacity or should go into that. But their information is, I think, fantastic. So I would say if we, you know, the 4 numbers that Jenny put up there, 1 could be prioritize, want it funded 100% of the time. Fund all of it, fund the amount requested, fully fund.
I just haven't done that math in my head. I just think about impact to the community, benefit to the city.
Well, I think that would be our goal is we get down through this and we have everything that's above 1 point or less than 1.5 on an aggregate rating between the 5 of us. We can
Yeah.
add that up to see what the number is, to see if we now have to get more focus on that group. And
Right.
then we can add 2 in. And then this works up where we just kind of say, hey, we want to focus on these projects right here. And then we can work in the numbers to see what we can fund.
I like that. So 1 rating is full funding, yeah.
I
mean, that
want to
makes
try and
sense to me.
fully fund it. 2 would be I want to partially fund it.
And 3 would be no commitment at this time.
If
until
there's
we
extra-
decide internally.
Yeah, if there's extra funds or we're always working, like we got $30,000 left, maybe we can pull a project from this pot. So if there's extra funds,
So it's more categorical than it is a prioritization.
yeah.
That changes things. All right. But I'm up to the task.
So Jenny, if you could please change me to a 3 on this one. Based on what I now understand.
So our scoring is gonna be 1 through 3. Is that correct?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I will stay at a 2, because that's where my mind was anyways, with this project.
So Suzanne
I'll
and
be a-
Josh are 3,
A 3, please.
I'm like a 2+, so we'll leave me at 2.
2. Okay.
No more granular.
2.1.
Integers only, Josh.
Okay, so parking lot maintenance.
He goes first this time.
This has continued to be on the list.
Yeah.
So,
And it went up like like 40,000 or so. Like last year was.
I'll name it a 2 for the moment.
Bill, you're up.
I'll go with 2 as well.
2.
Josh?
2.
Make that another 2.
Okay.
There's
Look
a
at that.
consensus.
We're on a
Look
roll.
at that. We're just gonna end it now. We're good. We're out. You're welcome.
The average rating was 2.
Valley maintenance, but this is not paving, right? There was a separate line item for paving, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I'm a 1.
1.
1.
1.
2.
1.
Oops.
1.
2.
I'm a 1.
Peter,
Which one was this for?
this is concrete program
Oh,
assistant.
I have to be a 1 on this.
All right, city share. Okay.
1.
I'll do a 1 on that.
1.
Oh, 1, sorry, on me.
I don't mean to be difficult, but in one sentence, can somebody remind me specifically what this is?
This is actually the city's portion of the concrete utility. So it's like the corner lots and then any of the, some of the business areas.
I'll be a 2.
This played into the funding though that's paid out of the,
Out of the public improvement fund,
yeah.
this is
It goes along with the fees that we pay.
correct. It
As
is the
expenses,
concrete
right?
utility.
That's,
So this
yeah, this is the other half.
Yeah,
Well,
this is the,
half,
ci-
but
this is
the other
city's
side of it.
portion.
Yeah. Yeah. So repairing any concrete around town, if you trees. Okay.
So we're up to the Dartmouth traffic calming.
Yes.
Okay. Josh up first on this one.
I think he was up first last time.
Okay, then I will give this the lowest rating possible. Is 4 as low as we go, or? do you have a 5?
Three.
You're a 3 too.
One, 2, and 3.
Oh, there's no 4? I want a 4 just for this project.
I'm a 3.
How do you feel about roundabouts?
I think it's a terrible idea in our city. We don't have enough space for that. That's my opinion.
This did have grant funding though, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a 3 all day.
Lean towards 2, but I have a feeling I'm probably gonna be persuaded to go down to a 3.
2 or 3?
2.
2.
2.
Oxford Ave, pedestrian bridge match. Am I first? I'm gonna say, I like the pet projects. I'll give this one a 2 for the moment.
Yeah, cause this is matching, this is gonna be the match from the Sam's Automotive. Is this matching from the potential funds from Sam's?
I don't think it's from Sam's, it's just for the bridge.
Okay,
That's across Oxford, so it's the city's portion of the grant.
okay. I am a 2.
1.
2.
2.
Nope.
I'm a 1.
The directors gave it a 1, so I'll give them a 1.
1.
One.
And I need another one sentence on this guy, something more than road and bridge.
I believe this is for materials.
I'm gonna give it a 3.
Two.
One.
I'm a 1.
Josh?
1.
One.
Union Avenue, is that correct?
Union Avenue.
1, please.
I'm a 1 as well.
1.
Yeah, 1.
So now we're up to Union Avenue repaving. One.
1.
2. No, 3. I want to be a 3.
Josh, you're up.
1.
Okay. Don't know who, I think Peter.
Yep.
Public art. Or are we stopping at, we're just looking at the tier ones?
I would at least like to,
I think
whatever the group wants to do, I would like to at least talk about walk and wheel, which is PIF 20 and PIF 46, because those are matches. But we can go through all of them too.
I thought going through tier 2. But again, I'm open.
Let's go through tier 2 and then we'll work on the 3s on our own and reconcile our numbers.
Before we move to tier 2, if I can interject, of all the projects you just reviewed, we broke them down by recurring program or one-time project. So if we could take a look, the column B. So we can see what are the recurrings will happen every year. What is a true one-time project, like a new acquisition? Hopefully that will give you additional perspective. Our goal is to try to break down all the project by recurring and sure, because recurring truly is a OAM, operation maintenance. And one time is true the capital project. So just give you additional. So hopefully we can break it down in the future moving forward. Then we can project how much we need for true OAM, how much we need for new capital acquisition. So this is a additional information we received from last year's. We were talking about what is one time. Definitely, we may have different definition, but it's a good starting point.
I saw in the chat that the correction that the memo came from a committee, not the directors. And yes, the word directors came out of my mouth, but.
Well, I think
acknowledge
because
was
it
a
says
committee.
director's prioritization on the spreadsheet,
Yeah,
so I think that's, but yeah, no, it's a good place.
so noted.
So would you like me to have this information displayed for PG, whether it's a program or a project? Is that it?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. And I guess.
Program being recurring in the
Yes.
full amount.
Correct.
Great.
All right, so we're up to public art.
Yep. Project public art
Who's starting with public art?
program.
I think Bill's up in our rotation.
I think it was like 250, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Pulling it up here.
250 a year. Times 4 years plus 50 a deal.
I would say I'm a 2.
Sorry, guys.
Is this a new public art acquisition, not related to the required investment in public art?
Correct. It's not the 1%. This is something new.
Bill was 2, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, Bill. I'm a sad little 3.
3.
3.
this.
You're up. Sidewalk. No, no.
Public art, yeah, I said it too. Yeah. So, program sidewalk gap.
Is that me?
Yes.
Two.
2. Oh, sorry.
2. I'm a
James, you were 2 or 1? 1, sorry, I thought I heard 1, 2. Bill?
2.
2.
Program signal equipment upgrade.
Josh.
2.
2.
2.
2.
2.
Program alley paving.
1.
3.
I'm a 3.
3.
2.
Program arterial and collector street pavement maintenance. I'm a 2.
There's not a 2024 request for this one.
Oh, there's not, you're right. Okay, so we're moving past that one then, I assume.
Yeah, how does that work?
Yeah.
Why is that on here?
But they have fund request for 2025.
Yeah,
Okay,
so it was a
that's-
5 year, so it's just on the list. but-
Okay.
But we don't need to score it.
Okay.
It goes through 2020, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll notice that in the future. Bridge repairs program. 1.
I'm a 1.
1.
2.
1.
Project City Center Inglewood, we'll pass that one. Moving to project neighborhood traffic calming, I'm a 3.
Wasn't any funding on this one, was there?
Sorry, I probably should have gone here.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was double checking if there was anything grant with it. I'm a 3 on this.
I'm gonna say 1.
3.
And 3.
Oh, it's more.
Program walk and wheel, Bill.
I'm thinking. Oh. I'll say a 2.
I think a 2. Are we gonna miss the opportunity of a full match? Do you know the, off the top of your head, the parameters of that match? For the grant?
Didn't we have the ARPA funding for the design phase? It's included in 2023.
Okay.
Cause it's 250 this year and then it's 500,000 for the next three
Yeah.
years.
So am I shooting us in the foot if I give it a 2?
If we don't fully fund it now, we mean.
Yeah. I'll be a 2. I'll just want to get easy.
True, that's a good point.
2.
I'll give this a 1, actually.
Project replace service center facility.
Peter, sorry, what was your score?
Mine was a, oh, I'm sorry, maybe I skipped one. Mine was a 1, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm gonna change my score to 1, please, because it meets my criteria.
You replace service center facility project 2. Oh, sorry, Suzanne, you're first.
Yeah, I have other ideas for that, so I'm gonna say 3.
3.
Can staff remind me, this is a project it seems like that's been on the list for a while. And doesn't it also yield revenue for the city through, like with Cherry Hills Village or an adjacent city that uses the facility?
Or, yeah, the garage portions of the facility.
Okay.
James always changes my.
How,
And
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, kind of like the only reason I'm a 3 on this one is I don't see how a $15 million 1-year project should come out of a fund that historically doesn't have more than $5 to $9 million to allocate from. Like, it's an important project, but how can this one explore some sort of dedicated funding that's not tied to one of these, capital project funds?
Yeah.
That was my thought too. That's why I was gonna go 3 as well. I mean, I love it. The presentation on it was great. But there's no way.
I'm sold 3.
And this is something that you could possibly include in your annual report. If you feel strongly it needs to be
Okay.
funded.
That's a good idea.
you could Suggest, let's look for alternative funding.
Thank you.
And that's what I had in mind.
Mr. Peter, you're up.
I'm at 2 on the facility.
And the next one is
I don't,
no request.
I'm 3. Where's my 3? I'm a 3 for this one, I'm a 3. Yeah. Jenny, on the one above, you can move me to a 1. Cause I mean, I think I'm,
Welcome.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
aligned with what everybody else was kind of thought process there. Totally. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Program, arterial and collector streets, we're gonna move past.
The next several don't have a 2020.
Oh, you're right.
So I think that takes us.
So
Okay.
can we go back a little bit, and I apologize, I missed some of the calls and the presentation on this, but the pavement by maintenance area, is this the one that we were hoping to mostly remove out of capital projects because of the ballot measure? Like, we still have a huge chunk going to this, and I thought we were gonna be able to get a lot of this away from here based off of that ballot measure.
I still think they probably need additional funding in addition to the ballot measure. That's why this request is here.
Can I change mine to 2 on this one? Because they are getting some funding from the ballot measure, and so I know it's not the gaps we've dealt with in the past. And I think that'd be interesting to understand what's the funding that's coming from and what is the gap based off of funding and the consequence of it based off of the dedicated funding from the ballot.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I can't see the screen. Which project are we talking about?
Pavement and maintenance by area. So
Gotcha. Yeah, so the street pavement assessment that we did 2 years ago indicated that we needed to be spending about $3.5 million a year. And so the ballot measure allocates 2 million roughly. Jenny and Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong. So we still have, a balance that we have every year. And really, as we try to catch up to what we need to be at to get us to that grade of, I believe we're trying to get to a C or B instead of a D, which is what we were at 2 years ago. We actually have to kind of up fund that a bit in, these first years.
Do we expect after year 5, so this is up funding it through 2028 at these numbers, when do we expect that drop off to be able to occur?
That's a great question, and I'll be glad to get that information from our works folks.
And it's the same problem they've always dealt with. There's not enough money to go around, but if they're getting an additional about 2 million on top of this, it still represents a shortfall. Thank you for that clarification.
So do we want?
Josh, does your score change or?
Yeah, I'm still at a 2 for this one, I think.
Okay. Is that the only one you wanted to go back to?
Yes.
Okay.
So do we want to then jump to the next fund, go through that, then come back, see where we're at, or? Sounds good. Okay.
We're okay not looking at tier 3s? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess I was going with that assumption, but if
Yeah.
anybody disagrees, they can call that out specifically.
I'm okay not looking at tier 3s.
I agree.
Okay.
Josh, you good? Moving
Yep.
past tier 3s, yeah, okay.
What's up next?
The capital projects fund, right? The badge system, if I recall, was a necessity. At least that's the way I took it from the presentation, was like, there wasn't it was a necessity. Because the old system was, it was being deprecated or,
I think it's near the end of life.
yeah, exactly, yeah,
And it's a one-time, it's a project.
yeah.
It's security,
Yeah.
safety.
So who's up? I'll start. You can put me as one.
Great.
One.
Same.
One as well.
Yep, me too. I didn't remember this one in the discussion.
I think it was the freedom
It was,
of,
It's the state
State.
version.
Information Act, that's right.
okay.
Yeah, they were saying FOIA, but it's listed here as Cora. Oh, and remember, Ward, I remember I was gonna ask you about this, because you called that out. Because they were referencing FOIA, but it says Cora or vice versa, and maybe it means both.
Yeah, they're generally used synonymously, but the correct term in Colorado is Cora.
So it is for Cora, not for FOIAs.
FOIAs are federal.
Right.
Yeah,
I
so
understand
we
that.
wouldn't handle those out of the clerk's office.
One.
Two.
Two.
One.
3.
Network development IT.
I think you're up, James.
Okay. No,
Oh, maybe Josh.
Either one. Whoever wants to go. Josh?
One.
I would agree.
One as well.
Yep, I'm one.
I guess I'll be a 1 also.
Is on this one, is there a reason why it's a capital project? Because it seems almost like just standard operating. I mean, or is it just kind of one of those things that's on the line?
I think it's just historically, some of the projects we were funding through capital projects. Because we didn't have the operating budget
For it, yeah.
for it, so. You're right, a lot of these programs
Yeah,
are ongoing, they're more operational
Yeah.
in nature.
because I kind of feel that way about PC replacement
Yeah.
as well, now that it really falls into operations, but yeah, I get it.
And how expensive are these PCs where they become capital?
And Bill, that's where Colin B is going to give us some guidance on that because we talked about this last year, just the nature of,
Yeah.
city charter operations. I think there was a salary coming out of one of these funds as well, to be able to cover a person's or 1 or 1.5 FTE. So adding those programs versus projects help us delineate which ones are those ongoing maintenance type needs versus.
I lost it.
Yeah, I think we might have lost you there at the end, but yeah, I'm following.
So next up is the PC replacement. I'll give that a 1.
I'll give it a 1 as well.
I'm a 1.
2.
2.
Phone system replacement project.
Yeah, this one was.
I didn't recall this one.
So if I read, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, if I remember, it was similar to the badge system where it was like, and I don't remember if it was Cisco but it was like where they're kicking us off basically. They're like, there's no more support for it, for the current system. Remember where, I don't know if were you gonna chime in there?
That's the long and short of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, obsolescence.
But this was intercity secure line and
I also recall the comment that they couldn't go to a web-based system because of emergency services.
that's what okay, that reminds me. Yep.
The other thing that stands out to me is this note in the memo that it says it will meet the city's goals. related to flexible work options. I think considering all the things we've heard about attaining and retaining staff, we can support that. And those flexible work options, I'd see that as an incentive too.
I guess I'll start off. I'm gonna go with. I'll have to review this one. I'm just gonna say a 2 for now.
I'm a 1.
I will say 1.
1.
1 as well.
Yes, this one keeps going. Because this one's still all the way throughout the next 5 years too, right?
What, the Emerald Ash?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Bills.
I'm a 2. Conflicting.
1.
2.
1.
I'm a 1.
And then I need a reminder on this 1% thing,
So
please.
based on the funding level of the CPF, then 1% of that funding is dedicated for art and open space or public places, I should say.
I can be a 1 there.
1.
So I'm sorry, point of clarification. So is it required that 1% be spent each?
It doesn't necessarily, I mean, we can fund it or not fund it, but if we are going to fund it, then it's at 1% of the capital project. Or you could even adjust that down.
So the dollar amounts
Typically, it's,
might change.
yeah, it will adjust depending on how much is funded through CPF. However, they could also say not to fund it. There could be a request not to fund it because we have.
So does a 2 even make sense? You partially fund the 1%? It seems like it's binary.
You can, in prior years, that number, it was reduced. Just because it ended up being the plug number for our 5 million or whatever our dollar amount was for that particular year.
You can put it at 2 for me, please. I'm gonna change mine.
I'll do a 2 as well.
I would like to be a 1, but I'm a 2 at the moment.
Yeah, I'm a 2.
You can move me to 2. One.
I'll do a 1 as well.
I have to say 1.
I'm a 1.
1.
2.
Are we on facilities and operations now?
Yes.
And this did not include some of the work that's needed at the treatment plant, did it?
No,
Not, okay.
no, this is strictly just the, like the rec center, Malley Center,
Okay.
this building.
You,
Did not include the golf course.
okay. Yeah, I'll give that a 2.
I'm gonna say 1.
2.
2.
This is one where it's like, I feel, it's like realistically, I don't know. It's like I have to feel like, I need to support what it costs to keep the facilities and operations going. And to say cut funding is a difficult thing for me to say, because it's like, well, how much would I really say cut it? Or if you look at some of these other ones, I mean, the art one's probably easier, but some of these, it's like, well, you could probably take a little money off of that. So I say 2, but I don't know, as it gets into it, I think that's gonna become that's a challenging one. So, but I'll stay at 2 for now.
And then next one does not have a request for 2024.
And that was the last minute addition from the public works director, so it'd be 20,000. 20,000 should have been added.
Okay.
2.
Is this like for security, for individuals, or do we know?
I think it's more with the cameras.
Oh, okay, security like cameras. So different than the one below it though. Because I see it's a tier 1. Like there's maybe additional need here, especially given, I'll go with that assumption, especially given, you know, what's happened in the library and things like that. So
Or is that one people on the one below it is cameras?
I don't think this is people. I think it's still more equipment.
library's low for,
1 for me on this one.
IT could be more of the system behind the cameras.
I'll probably do a 1 on this one as well.
I'm a 1, security 6.
I'm a 1.
One. Actually, sorry, 2.
We're on the security cameras now.
Yes.
IT, but IT for that, okay. 1.
I'm a 1.
I'm a 1.
2.
There's quite a bit that's carrying over on this one too. Just interesting, I guess I should say that as a footnote, but
2.
2.
2.
I'm a 1.
I'm a 2. And so this, and I mean, obviously it doesn't, but like facility backup's not part of like general operations, like the one above it, facility and operations 1. I don't know, it just seems like it's, so I mean, are we at the point where like, if, like we don't have generators, or is it replacement, or I don't know if anybody knows.
If I remember correctly, since police department is the only building that has generator, right?
Because
This
it's so
building does
new.
not have a generator.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna switch to a 1. Man, like 700,000. I'll stay at 2. I'll stay at 2. Oh, I see the comment there. Yeah, to not have currently have working generators. Okay, I didn't realize that. That's sad. But our police department does though. Okay. Then do we want to I remember this one from last year. Furniture replacement.
And is this primarily here at the Civic Center?
Yes.
I'll start. I would give that a 3 just because of the uncertainty around the future of this building.
Well, I'm gonna go with it too.
Yeah, I'm a 2 as well.
I'm going with a 2 just because all the columns to the left have zeros in them.
2.
I mean, it makes sense.
Okay, I think we've gone through that list other than the tier 2 and tier 3. But there's no funding.
Okay.
Okay.
So what our average score is.
Sure.
I would also like to see the median, please. The median.
And then we start.
Where the mode.
Where we're at. And then we should probably start tying in the dollar amounts.
Sorry, I was gonna start.
On the ones we just did. Is that something we can do on our homework?
What's that?
Is that something we can do on our homework?
Just thinking that.
Well, like even, yeah, I started looking at the ones, I mean, like, we all agreed on the ones and, you know, what is that at this point, you know? I'm just
Well,
gonna
that's a
assume
good
everything's
point.
under 5 million.
That's a good point.
Um,
Because didn't last year, we ended up assigning a dollar value separately and we
I
defined our decision to agree on, to disagree in some cases.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like all those things that we just categorized as two is really.
Because I guess what I will see out of this is the general consensus from the group.
Yeah.
To help us make our monetary decision.
well, last year became easier because was it at 4 million or there was an additional 4 million or so that
That's correct.
came,
There was
yeah,
that
hit,
bonus
so
money.
that, I know that certainly made it easier.
Thanks. I know that's one more thing, but
No?
I do wanna.
Makes a difference.
Yeah, it does, like,
Does make a difference.
Yeah, how close are we? Yeah, thank you, Jenny, for putting up with this.
No, you guys are good.
And maybe coming out of this year, you know, being our second year and, you know, there's more information on this that, you know, we kind of templated, is this the approach we want to take, you know, going forward? We probably said the same thing last year, but I think this, you know, being a second time around for the same group, you know, you kind of finding what works, what's the best way, you know, to template it.
yeah. I like what we just did and I
Yeah.
also like this spreadsheet too.
Awesome.
What will we do next?
Yeah, I did find when I was going through the spreadsheet that the additional information and such was very helpful, so thank you all. I know many people were involved in all that, but I did find it a lot easier to go through and think through.
So do you want me to sort by median or average?
Oh, I didn't even think. I don't think I care. I just would like to compare the two numbers. So do you guys have a preference?
I think sorting by average will give us a better sort, based off of the small score differentiation and only 5 of us.
Okay.
Hold on just a second.
Take some notes, spread out next year. They're all pretty good, because I sit over there usually. That's when they want to replace the furniture. Here you go. I think I'll take some notes, or some of that, Jenny's got some of that in here, but then it's just like, for next year, or whatever, you know, it's like a little cheat sheet of like, hey, here's what we did last year, that worked, cause
Yeah.
it's hard to remember. Great.
Largest to smallest.
Job eight or something.
Oops.
And we can only see part of what you have to say.
I can read it for him. He said to add on to Bill's point, as part of the review of the CIP process, our consultant Stan Tech will be reaching out to you with survey tools sometime this summer. Your feedback will be helpful in the proposals that are submitted to council to improve the process. Thanks in advance.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
And Jenny, I think we want to do smallest to largest on the sort because 1 is our must funds.
Oh, got it. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
I'm going, what happened here? This went the opposite direction. That's right. used to play largest to smallest. The smallest to largest. Better. We start putting in dollar amounts or so you can see what your running total is.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful, yeah. James, didn't you say you were in budget season for your? Overloaded with.
I just had my board budget committee meeting today where we went over our whole proposed budget.
Your brain's ready.
Good times,
Swinging well.
you know.
Oops. So we got anything above one. What's this? Million will bring us, take us over the top. Oops.
Jenny, what's the sum of projects that we have an average score of 1 for? We all agreed should be funded.
That total is. $2.775 or $2,775,000.
Wow, we did a pretty good job.
Well, now you move into the 1.2s. So what does the 1.2s add up to? 4 of the 5 of us wanted to fund these ones.
So the 1.2 adds up to $1.8 million.
Okay, it's what, 4.5, 4.6?
There, it mostly went.
Yeah.
Okay, about 4.68.
Interesting, not bad, actually. We had that happen last year too.
Yeah.
Remember, we didn't have a lot of rain going in.
We did. Despite all our different ones, yeah.
It's now when we move into the 1.4s.
Yeah. That's probably where it is.
It's probably because of me and street
But
comment.
we're not even funding all the 1.2s
Yeah.
to get to that, because right now we're at 5.378. This is.
I think there was like some ones a little bit lower that were being funded for the 5.378 calculation.
I think I've got everything highlighted. That's 5 point. Well, that's 4.75. Where's this coming? Where's this numbers coming?
If you go down, I think there was like a 1.6 and a 1.8 project that the funding got copied over for. Right there.
So the 1.2, that number changes. It's actually 2,550,000.
Which, as we collectively ranked them, the top two scores that we all agree with and 4 or 5 of us want to fund covers the $5 million budget right there. More than.
Okay, so that's stuff we can work on for homework and reconcile between now and the 8th. Bill?
Yeah, so is that, so on the twos, is that where we want to say, provide, okay, so if we're gonna partially fund it, what that partial amount is to come to, that we, that's from my head.
I think that's what we did last year, is we reconciled what each of our amounts were outside of those that we unanimously agreed with. I believe is how we did it. I have a copy of it.
Correct. Yeah, last year was we did a little bit more in terms of group prioritization and discussions away from the number this year than we did last year. Last year was unique because we had more to work with in terms of what the total capital project allotment was. We did split it up, and maybe this is kind of a good breaking point to not run too late on it, but do we want to each go through and make our own $5 million funding level? The above $5 million funding level, if we can ask for clarity of, is that 6 million? Is that 12 million? What does that number look like in terms of how we're looking at it, as well as with all other funding levels? Take an aggregate of that. We presented all 5 last year to just show the diversity. But yeah, that's how we did last year, and thoughts on how to incorporate similar to this year.
Yeah, I think having the, and I think we talked about that a little bit last month, was having the collective along with the individual was, I think everyone kind of agreed that that was beneficial, gave council a little bit different perspective on where we made, where we weren't aligned maybe to some extent. Or am I remembering that correctly? I think that's what we said last month.
Yeah, that's right.
But because I like the idea of everyone's gonna go through the work to put that in. We might as well present it, might as well be part of that, and then it can be consumed, as folks wish.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we delivered was a unanimously
Yeah.
produced. Yeah.
Yep, agreed.
Cool.
And as a committee, are we only gonna focus on the public improvement fund and capital projects.
It seems like that's probably, I think we did more last year.
So it sounds like it's a similar situation to what we've seen in years past, where the requests for the other funds do not exceed the available balance. And please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone from the city. So I think if anyone goes through that list and has things we specifically want to call out, maybe things you're against funding, we bring it up that way rather than if there's enough money and the city says they need the funding for their departments from this budget. There's very few situations where I think I would step in and try and override that, especially in light of available funding.
I think the only one that might have questionable funding would be the train that's being funded out of CTF. In the event that the bond measure goes through in the fall, that would be the other funding source for that train. So I think everybody else has sufficient funding
To cover.
other than I think the CTF.
And, okay, just so I'm clear, so if I just look at the summary of the Conservation Trust Fund, there's an available 2.2 million, and there's only a requested amount for next year for 990K.
And you have to also keep in mind with these funds that their appropriation rolls forward. So what's showing as available budget are ongoing projects that, haven't completed yet. So I would typically, Conservation Trust Fund has around $300,000 to $400,000 a year to spend. So I would, that truly is their funding source. I wouldn't say they have $1 million to spend.
You would or you wouldn't, because it looks like have currently 915K appropriated to our current year budget.
Of that, there's 500,000 that's for the Bellevue train. So if you said to fund the Bellevue train out of CTF, they would have to cut some projects
I see,
from the current listing.
okay.
How much new money is in CTF to allocate to the 2024 requests?
Between 300,000 and 400,000.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
And can I ask when they prioritized these items? In terms of what scenario were they envisioning? Were they contemplating were they assuming a positive outcome on the bond measure or not?
They're giving everybody options. So if the bond measure didn't pass in the fall, or if we don't even go forward with the bond measure, then they would like to fund it either through CTF or funding that came from the sale of the Bronco team. So we have about 600,000 there, or excuse me, 400,000 there.
Generally speaking, anytime a request extends beyond the total amount of new available funds, like how can we move those requests to a different funding source? Or have a plan to, because those are the ones that if they need $500,000 for a train and there's no other way to do it except wait 3 years and do $150,000 a year from CTF, like that's a different discussion to commit to 3 years versus saying, hey, go figure out if Broncos money or a different source can accomplish this. And so the challenge is we keep seeing these $15 million when we know we only have $7 million, like these massive projects that can never fit into the available budget. It makes it hard in context of how to use that budget or committing a chunk of the budget over X number of years to satisfy that 1 year request.
I think what's helpful for the departments to hear is from the community's perspective, if you don't have these other funding sources, do you want to fund the train and use all of CTF money? Would that be where you'd want to put your money? So in your prioritization, that kind of feedback from you, I think is helpful to the departments.
So is it then taking things, additional things such as the Bellevue train to consider, not necessarily all of them, but those more high dollar amounts?
This is true.
Yeah. Because if we only had, say, worst case scenario, 300,000, we would have to go into what's already appropriated in the past to make up the $215,000 deficit of what the train request is. Otherwise, we're not getting the full, train request. And that's that balance of like day one, the numbers don't work for this request based off of what we expect to come available. We've got to go take from the past or take from the future.
That is what I heard. I'm not sure if you guys can use the train. Because I think to the earlier question, we don't necessarily need to go through and prioritize each of the funds. I don't know if that's the best use of time
But yeah, this is the only other fund
Yeah.
that I'm aware of that has a,
as that kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and this is
And-
unusual just because there are additional funding sources. Sorry, Josh, I cut you off.
Yeah.
Oh, no. And I was going to say, it seems that the unique situation is because of the needs of the train. And we heard last year about how aggressively the train was run because of the interest and building on top of that. So like, to me, it's a massively important project, but it doesn't fit in the confines of how the CTF is funded and what's available to do the other needs in the CTF. And that's where, to me, Broncos funding, any other sources, this is high on the list to get that caught up, because next year that's not going to be a consideration for the CTF. It'll be back to normal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where my mind was too with it. So I mean, we could add that in there as part of our recommendation if we all align that, if there's not the other source would be the Bronco money that we would feel would be beneficial for this, right? Assuming that the measure doesn't pass.
Yeah, I think the big one's the Pirate Cove expansion. To me, that project's related to the measure. The Bellevue train, that's related to the measure. So those would both be punted until future years when we have more information based off of the measure. Not that they're not important projects, but just funding sources isn't right for the CTF, in my opinion.
Well, specifically to the train and the expansion of Pirates Cove. Josh?
Correct.
Okay. But I mean, certainly we care about keeping both of those in at least the current running and operating performance plus.
Oh, 100%. The question is, if you have $300,000 to split across these 10 projects,
Right.
and one of them is asking for 515, like,
Right.
it just doesn't work there. It's getting different money to support that, or money that 300,000 needs to go up to a higher level and get more transfers into CTF to support something like this.
Understand.
And I think the Bellevue Farm falls in that category too, with the Pirates Cove expansion.
I think on here is just the general maintenance though. It's not including the expansion that's
Right.
outlined in the
Oh, is that,
proposal.
okay.
But that's a good point. Okay. So I guess we can provide our thoughts on that. And I guess this is kind of somewhat a member's choice, but I know last month I brought up, I mean, do we want to, I think it's in June that council is meeting further with Parks and Rec on the proposal for the measure. I believe it's next month. Do we want to provide and it doesn't necessarily have to be aligned with, I think, the June 8th date, but before our next meeting, maybe, do we want to take a stance on, from a committee perspective? That might be difficult to do over email, especially because given the constraints. But do we want to provide a stance to council on whether we support it or, support it modified or don't support it at all?
If I recall correctly, Bill, last year we did take a position on both of the questions. I I think our position was somewhat general though, in that we recommended referring it to voters and that we were generally in favor of that. I don't think we got down to the detail of did we support a mill levy change versus a sales tax. I don't think,
Yeah.
you know, we dug down to that level of detail on the specific approach,
Yeah.
but broad conceptual support in the case of those two items, the police and the roads.
Because this one I'm probably open to discussing a modified proposal.
That, yeah, honestly, that's probably where my head's been with it is thinking through it. I mean, I love the proposal. You know, $50 million is a lot, given the constraints across the city.
I don't want voters to get sticker shock.
And I think voters are going to be in a pretty testy mood already as they consider the governor's proposal, which is very confusing to a lot of people. I mean, I don't know how people are in your neighborhoods. My entire block is livid and active in terms of appealing and all of that good stuff. I can't imagine voters being pretty open-minded about kind of that limousine proposal that we saw from Parks and Rec. I think you're right, Suzanne. It would have to be scaled back considerably.
And at the same time, I would be sad if I didn't see the improvements to Pirates Fund that they discussed. So that's why I have modifications in mind.
Yeah. And maybe that's as simple as that, is that, you know, that's our recommendation to council, is that we feel like that's, you know, again, if we were all aligned, but, you know, using that train of thought was we feel a modified approach to that is that the, you know, and, you know, do we think, personally, my focus would be to say, hey, you know, the revenue generating items out of there, such as the Pirates Cove expansion, you know, the train, you know, the farm, you know, those would be higher priorities to me than it would be redoing some of the, not that there, you know, there may be some specific needs in parks, but some of the other items, it's like, you know, it's more nice to have. So I don't know, or maybe we can wait till our next meeting to provide that, you know. Maybe we just think of that and just wait till our next meeting.
We are going to send out a survey, or we have sent
Yeah,
out a
I
survey.
got that
Have you
text
received it?
yesterday,
I think it's sent out on Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll give, yeah. Okay, so it sounds like I know we're at time here. So we'll take this and then we'll be signing, looking at the dollar amounts for anything that's partially funded. Is that where we're at? I mean, we'll look at it across the board, but with probably more focus on where we said we were partially funding it, or our numbers were leading towards that. Is that right? Yes. Okay. And then, so we know. Go ahead.
And that follow up, because it sounds like we're all gonna put our own numbers and, can we have clarity on the above 5 million funding level and all other funding level? I'm just calling that out to make sure, you know, if you want us to do a 5 million, 10 million and 7 million, just to see different, you know, levels and ideas to get that balance, but just some clarity other than above and all.
Well, I know that the tier one project or capital request was about $9 million.
Uh-huh.
I mean, potentially, you know, there is the unassigned fund balance from the general fund that could, you know, fund that difference. But I mean, I think that's where city council is looking for guidance in terms of, okay, if we have the 5 million, we know we can fund the 5 million. Now, if there's extra funding, whether it comes from the unassigned fund balance, whether it comes from capital projects within the community, that we don't have that number yet, but hopefully we'll have some idea with our June meeting. That could be, you know, potential funding that city council would like your guidance or input in terms of, okay, above 5 million, what would be your other projects or what would be your other recommendations? So I would say it would be helpful if you could prioritize up to the 9 million, which is your tier one dollar amount.
So would you want like 5 million plus, because if we have $9 million to allocate, it's easy to allocate up to $9 million. Versus if you want a next dollar allocation, my next $300,000 would go to this project, followed by $100,000 going to this project, and kind of say that way, that's kind of a different mentality of just a big bucket of $9 million.
Right, no, and I think that's what we're looking at is the next,
Okay.
the next level of funding. So if we do have 300,000 or 500,000 or $1 million, what would be your priority of the projects listed? So after you identify the 5 million, then what would be your next items that you would recommend from the list that you'd like funded, either wholly or partially? Not to say that you're gonna have the 9 million, but it just helps if funding becomes available. It just streamlines our process so that we don't have to come back to you and say, okay, now can you prioritize the next 4 million?
No, and it makes sense. I think it's a great approach. It's thinking about the best way to display that, because if there's a project that at 5 million, we're only going to fund for 75%, and let's say there's an extra $50,000 we don't fund, my third step next $50,000 might be back to that project where steps 1 and 2 are for new projects. So I can't think of an easier way other than just writing out a list of like next dollars and prioritizing my own projects outside this spreadsheet. But I don't know if you've thought about a better way to communicate that.
So that would then mean that we would have, in addition to our funding amounts, we would then have our individual ranking.
Like, so it'd be allocate $5 million and then have a list of the next $30,000 would go to this project. The next $50,000 would go to this project, which was funded as a part of the $5 million. And like, that would be the next dollar way to do it.
So if you had to, so if the 5 million, so right now, we would, if we were going to fund the, your current list, we would have to cut $325,000 from this list to get to the 5 million. You might say, if we have 100,000 or 200,000, say one of those projects is $200,000. Well, if we had $200,000, we'd like to fund this next project. Or list the next projects that are available or that you would like to fund.
Yeah.
In order.
So it seems like as we go through it, then our partially funded projects, we should put them in order.
Right, if any.
Our personal
Instead of allocating a percentage per dollar, so to speak. Because that would be another way, sorry.
So yeah, if something was partially funded, then you'd want to make sure it was fully funded. Or not, or you could say, or not, you could say, no, I'd rather partially fund something else. Or fully fund, 2 or 3 smaller projects or something like that.
Yeah.
Would a $5, $7, and $9 million funding level work, and then we can use the spreadsheet, or do you just want us to fund $5 million and then rank next dollar we would fund beyond that?
I think that would be helpful, but that's why we have that second column, column R, that you would prioritize the next projects in dollar level.
But it's the order of the assignment of dollars, because
Correct.
I don't know.
How are you, Peter?
how were you thinking of presenting that? Cause I don't know if I fully followed.
Well, I mean, I understand that we would sort of put the projects in order of funding. But another way to look at it would be to say, well, how many cents on any additional dollar will we put towards these projects? And then you could rank them in order, I guess, as well. It's just another way of looking at it. I don't know if that's the way to do this. It's just an idea.
I see what you mean. Is there an easy way to do that across 5 people?
Well, and then, cause then you could say, well, this project's only gonna get $12 because we only had $100. So, you know, so there's that. So maybe you make a minimum, but it doesn't need to be more complex. It was just. an
Yeah,
idea.
no, I say that all, because I was trying to visualize it, so.
And then there are those projects where if we have $10,000, then I'd be in favor of just.
Shoot. Yeah, fund
Fully
it and
funding it.
scratch that one.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what if we allocate the money out through 2.0 above the 5 million? That's over, or whatever that number is that pushes it over, and then,
And you're partially funded, which ones would you fund?
right,
From each personal perspective, right?
right, and then we can aggregate that collection and make a decision together. Just an idea.
Yeah. It seems to make sense. This makes
I mean, I feel like that gives us some clarity in terms of when we all go home and do our homework, and
Exactly,
then we
yeah.
don't have to have a discussion except on the final number, because we'll all have input some value,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because
Go ahead, Josh.
I was gonna say the big thing is the 5 million we know we have.
Yeah,
Like, and focusing on that and getting a solid number around that. And then saying it's literally if we have 5.1 million, this is what it is. It's 5.2. And just flowing that waterfall down. I don't know how we aggregate everything past the 5 million.
And you might want to just look at it in terms of projects. If there's a certain project that speaks to you.
yeah, that's kind of where my
And then
head was.
see, try to fund it or have city council fund it as best they can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's say
because
if I
we
had
do
another
have that
2 million.
delineation, and then we have the tier prioritization as well. So theoretically, a lot of these that have no balance, I mean, it's gonna narrow it down pretty quickly.
Yeah,
I mean, collectively as a group, as soon as you have a next dollar goes to the 1.6 projects, the 1.8 projects followed by the 2.0 project. So that follows kind of our group vote of it. And so do we want to go in and say by each of these chunks, 1.6, prioritize your 1, 2, and 3. 1.8, prioritize your 1, 2, 3, 4, however many in there. And then it keeps kind of our group, feelings about funding priorities balanced with our individual feelings.
Yeah, I think that's why we did the 1 through 3. I mean, it made it simple and it gives us this pretty nicely stepped aggregate rating that would make sense to me.
Yeah, that's the proxy for the group vote of the next dollar.
And we'll run, and I guess if we have an untold amount that could be available, then that would help us settle that.
so do we want to, so we're responses due by the 8th. Do we want to have our internal rankings by the 1st? For a first review?
That's next Thursday.
Yeah, a week before. And we can't, and keep me honest, we can't we can email it all out to each other, but we can't have a conversation and email with more than 3 people, correct?
More than 2.
More than 2, yeah, okay.
Say that one more time, so I'm clear.
So I'll email this document to all of you.
Yes.
And then if you want to converse amongst yourselves, you can do that in parties of 2. Once you get 3 or more, it becomes a open records issue.
So we can't have back.
So we each have to only sit, well, theoretically, we up to 2 only, but we'll basically each be responding with our version of the funding on the spreadsheet.
Yep.
And that's acceptable.
Yep, and then if you guys, if you want to keep me in the loop, then I can share, send it out to the group.
We'll do that, I think, right? Right, Bill, we do that?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So basically you could have a little, two-party subcommittees.
And last year, I don't think we even needed that.
No,
I don't think we did. I think, I
I'm
mean, we'll
happy
see.
to.
Yeah, if we need to, that's fine with me too. I'm always happy to jump on the phone.
We can always, we also can have a meeting too, if you want to have a meeting. We have time.
We have an ad hoc meeting. So if we said the first to have our first pat, then we could kind of see where we're at. You know, do we need to have one-off meetings? Is a week enough time to, or should we shoot for the 5th? Like,
I like the idea of the first, because then that gives us another weekend to adjust again if
That's
we
what I
need
thought.
to.
Or if anybody we need to do part 2s, that gives a couple days to, to get in touch with each other, the schedules. And then one of you were gonna be the spreadsheet wizards to help, just to fill it out.
All right.
I'm not a
Happy
spreadsheet
to.
wizard, but I will try to
I love.
hack something together. I know, but I'm not a
No,
Excel wizard. I'm
I-
amazed when I watch somebody like Jenny or you or go through and do it, because I'm like, I'm just not that good.
If you run out of time, I'm happy to.
Yeah, no,
I work all day in Excel.
well, I do too, but I enjoy it. So, yeah, so you're gonna send me
I'll send
what
it
we
to
put together
everybody.
today, and then I'm gonna make some tweets and then send it to the group,
Okay.
and you guys can have your
I'll
individual.
start putting it in there. Okay. All right, so I think we're good on that. Anything for members' choice? The only question I had was, are we gonna be able to get a new alternate member or,
I believe so. I think interviews are this month or next month, June 12th.
okay,
And that new person will join us in a July meeting.
okay.
Great.
Cool. Sounds good.
And have we had any applicants specifically to join?
I don't know. I'll find out and I'll email you guys.
I don't remember it being listed on but I could have missed it too on the social media posts. Because we were in a weird time frame that the city had already gone out and said, hey, here's our openings, and then we had our switch. And I again, I could have missed it, but I don't remember it being listed on that list of
Yeah.
opening.
See.
They do have discretion though, Bill. Like in my case, I didn't apply for this
Yeah.
committee.
I was the same way.
I'm thrilled to be here, by the way, but this wasn't, my initial application and they asked me to consider it. So I think there's some
Yeah.
flexibility.
I was
Yeah,
in the same
you
boat.
guys were recruited into the committee. Look at that.
But yeah, that's great. That's good. We'll have our new member coming soon. So, all right, any other member choice items? All right, then I think we're adjourned for today. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for staying late.
Thank you. I don't see it.